All right, it's time. It's time to share my story, a little bit more about Nosh, how I got into holistic health, well-being, um, creating resilient being, and my interests in personal growth and spirituality and so much more. So go ahead and grab some tea, maybe put on your headphones, go for a walk, buckle up, whatever feels right for you. I'm just so glad you're joining here and tuning in. And really, my intention for this is to create more connection and really to be of help and service. So if I can be of inspiration or help in any way to you or to someone that that gives me fulfillment and gives me peace. So where to even start? So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Naushad. I go by Nosh. My parents are from India, and my roots are Persian or Iranian. And I grew up in America, in California. So a little bit of context there. So yeah, my ancestry is originally Iranian. That's my religion is an ancient Persian religion, Zoroastrianism. They were persecuted over 1,000 years ago, came to India. My parents grew up in India and made it out to the US to pursue their dream, their life dream, American dream, and ended up meeting in California, in the Bay Area, near Stanford, and that's where I was born. That's where I grew up in the Silicon Valley, the home of the tech world, and also a bunch of startups now. And so I grew up in that environment. As a kid, as a young kid, very mischievous, loved to jump around, play around, get into trouble. My parents and relatives and family friends say, and at some point around 7 or 8, I became a lot more obedient. I think there's more to explore there. But growing up, I loved the outdoors. I loved playing, loved running away from home, going to the park, skating, biking, playing around in the neighborhood with kids. My parents put me in all sorts of sports growing up, and that was definitely where I had the most fun. And I grew up in a town that was relatively white, and we had a few minorities. I definitely felt like an outsider growing up and wanting to fit in, wanting to be more American. So in a way, there was a little bit felt like I was in between two different worlds. Parents coming from India with that heritage and culture and different religious background, and then growing up in America and wanting to fit in. As I got older, I definitely was shy. I was definitely a bit more timid in terms of speaking up in groups and fully expressing myself. But when I did feel comfortable, the goofy side really, really loves to come out. And some of the memories I have from my youth is playing a lot of soccer, playing a lot of sports, going out into nature. My family, we did trips to Lake Tahoe growing up, so it's a very special place to me. Did a lot of trips to India as well to visit family over there. And just feel so fortunate. I definitely grew up in a level of privilege. My parents traveled quite a bit, took us to many different places. Eventually, put me and my siblings in private school. So I went to a prep high school, and I had a lot of opportunity. Also, kind of grew up in an environment of high pressure too. I felt there was a lot of expectation. Maybe it was not directly said, but indirectly said, and it was a very competitive atmosphere that I grew up in, both in sports world and academics, and and then in the work side of things too. Growing up in in Silicon Valley. It was definitely, the place to prove yourself for sure. And part of my journey has been exploring that, and maybe some of the programming that has resulted from being in some of those higher competitive environments. As I mentioned before, soccer and playing sports was a big part of my experience growing up. It was actually one of my best friend since the age of 6. We were really good friends in kindergarten, elementary school. His dad was our soccer coach, our club team soccer coach, and he would take us to it was a San Jose Clash, I think at the time, when the MLS first restarted. It was back in '96. So we'd go to tons of games. So I was just always around that environment. And I also remember in '98, it was the World Cup in France, if I'm remembering correctly. My mom won tickets through a lottery through her work, and we ended up going to France to go see USA versus Iran. And that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It was interesting because my home country versus where my roots are from. But even actually my first memory of soccer was '94 World Cup at Stamford Stadium. Brazil was playing against Cameroon, and my dad took me to see that game. And I remember sitting behind the goal and just feeling the buzz, the electrifying energy of the whole stadium and the players and everything. I just fell in love. So at that, I was 6 years old at that point, fell in love with soccer, fell in love with the sport. And over the years, just started to play more and more. My parents would send me to camps and trainings and all of that. And so once I got to high school, my life was pretty much school, soccer, homework, sleep, rinse, repeat, do it again. School, soccer, homework. And that was my life, and I was very, very content with that. And as I got more competitive, and I think this was around my sophomore year in high school. So at that point, I'd say I started to play goalkeeper. I started to play goalkeeper a little bit earlier, maybe when I was about 12, 13. But I wasn't really fully playing it until I got older. And my coach came to me and said, hey, do you want to play at the next level? And I said, for sure. That's what I want. He said, well, keep doing what you're doing and stick to the goalkeeper position. And, in a way, I was just really, really excited, really lit up. And it was something that I enjoyed playing. And at the same time, growing up playing soccer, I loved playing on the field too. So I was a left back growing up. So it was a little bit of a tough thing to accept, but I knew at that time I just wanted to play at the higher level. At least my ego did. So I ended up making it to a more competitive team, and then my junior and senior year was playing for a more competitive club. We ended up playing in state championships and regional championships, and even one year we made it to national championships. And my goal was to play at the next level, which I ended up doing. Ended up going to play D1 at Santa Clara University. And my whole experience playing in college was really, really enlightening in many ways, and was also probably some of the most challenging times of my life, because I was also going through a lot of serious injuries. And it started before I got to college. I was having knee injuries, ankle injuries. I had actually even had 3 surgeries before I even got to college, 1 on my ankle and 2 on my knee. And that was really, as I was in college, I had gone from being, the best player on at the high school level, MVP of the league, and then playing for one of the best club teams. And then all of a sudden you get to this next level in college, and everyone else around you was the MVP, all-star, played on this team, that team, and we're all super competitive. And it was definitely a rough awakening for me. Spent a lot of games and years in college on the bench, fighting for playing time, overcoming injury, rehabbing, coming back, getting knocked down again. And it was really a big battle in the mind too. I was able to really become aware of what was happening many years after the fact, that after I started to do more of that introspection. But nonetheless, I was pursuing my dream. Really, that's what it was about. And during this time, it was okay. I was 20 years old in college, and competing at a high level, and at the same time, I was experiencing a lot of pain in my body. And what was happening at the time, I was getting physical therapy. Western medicine was saying, hey, we could do surgery on this. We can give you more painkillers, which happened, cortisone shots, that type of thing. But it got to a certain point where the pain was so much and the frustration was so high. And I deep down knew what the path that I was going on, it wasn't working. Just continuing to do the same kind of rehab and more painkillers. And I was trying really, really hard. I was putting so much effort into that process, but I wasn't really getting results. So that's when I really started to take a step back, kind of throw the painkillers away and say no to, at that time, it was a back surgery that I did not want to get. Start to explore massage therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, and got into yoga. It was all around the time I think I was a senior in college, and starting to put together some of the pieces, learning a little bit more about how the body functions. And even though I had an issue with my knee or my back at the time, it wasn't just coming directly from there, that every single part of the body is connected, right? And how your ankles affect your knees and your hips, and how your hips affect your knees, and how the alignment of the hips and the core and the shoulders and the posture and everything, how everything else is affected. And so that was really the beginning of better understanding holistic health and well-being. I, in college, also had went through some serious neck and head injuries, concussions, kicks to the neck and face. And so that brought on a whole different area of challenges in terms of my mental health and ability to focus. And kind of taking a step back from all of this, I was going through a tough time in a lot of areas of my life. Sports was one part, but just kind of feeling very alone in the whole process, and as a man, feeling like I had to put on more of this tough mask and face to the world, because we were in a very competitive environment. So looking back at that time, I held a lot of stuff back, and I didn't have the avenues at that time to really express what I was going through. I wasn't even in a relationship at that time. And I realized from a psyche perspective, I was in a really dark place, because I was in very much of a mindset of feeling not enough, working really hard, feeling like I'm deserving of more, and carried a lot of shame, carried a lot of insecurity, and regardless of what I was achieving or accomplishing or not, that's what I carried around. And I had a very, very strong critic who was always trying to be perfect, who was always wanting more. Because of a lot of the success that I had in sports at a younger age, right, it was almost ingrained in me, right, that everything has to be better. And there's some beauty in that, right, of wanting to be better all the time. But it really ruled my world. It ruled my mind, that I was aiming for perfection. And the reality is that perfection, in a sense, is an illusion. What we can aim for is excellence and consistency and dedication, devotion, more of those deeper kind of spiritual qualities. In how we prepare and how we show up. And I was just in this constant loop of self-criticism and judging every little thing that I did wrong. And so that was definitely a tough place to be, and that I'm sure some of you might identify with that sense of just wanting to be better and needing to be perfect. And that's a journey, and it is really a balance of how do you put your heart and your intention and your desire out there with also letting go of finding that perfectionism, and not letting perfect be the enemy of the good. So, I graduate college. I'm starting to seek out some of these alternative therapies. I ended up, at the time finding, I guess, a therapist, more of a physical therapist, functional trainer that I was really inspired by, who was all, really looking at the body holistically. And so starting to address some of those concepts, and moved to San Francisco for a healthcare technology job, which I was really excited about, doing more on the sales operations kind of side of things, and living a life in San Francisco. And it was great. And I was starting to heal, still going through a lot of pain. Some of the same sort of mindsets permeated through that work in San Francisco and the job that I had of just continuing to push myself and kind of go overboard. But at the same time, I was learning a lot about more holistic health concepts. My roommate at the time happened to be someone who had a training in medicine, but also holistic health and emotional intelligence, and was kind of fed up of the Western system, and was really helping patients through just having heart-to-heart conversations and trying to address the root and helping people better understand emotions. So here I am, like 21, 22, graduating from college and coming off of, competitive athletic experience and somewhat of a frat type of life, and drinking beer and eating pizza and all that, to then moving to San Francisco, learning about nutrition, going to farmers markets, working for a healthcare tech company, doing yoga regularly, seeking holistic health practitioners, and learning about things like emotional intelligence from my roommate at the time. And so my world really started to open, and started to see new avenues for growth and healing and health and vitality, and just being in a whole new environment. Was in a relationship at the time, and was really growing in a lot of different ways as I was kind of navigating a lot of pain that I was carrying. And so I was kind of, on a mission, on one hand, to kind of prove myself out in the world, and on the other hand, trying to really understand how to rehab and get back to health, and also accept a lot of the damage that I had done to my body. It really started my journey of yoga around that age, and going consistently. And as I started to practice more and more, I was noticing benefits overall in my levels of stress and flexibility, balance in certain areas, and levels of pain. But really more so in the mind, and then started to realize, oh my gosh, this practice of yoga is more of it's a practice for myself. It's a practice of coming home to myself. And so I was becoming somewhat aware of that, in my early mid-20s, and just continuing to explore. I was even open. I was so open at that time. Like my roommate said, oh, I know this energy healer. Why don't you go see them? And I went and visited them, and found it really interesting. And I think a previous version of me just wouldn't have been open to that. And I'd say, kind of moving forward, like after 4 years of living in SF and working at that company, I was just feeling this deep calling to do something different. And I knew that I wanted to help people with their health, help people get out of pain. And I was definitely stressed out at the job that I was working at, and realized like I didn't really see myself 5-10 years in the future of being in that kind of environment. And I knew I wanted to do something that just involved directly working with people in the capacity of their health and well-being. And I took a leap of faith and left that job. I left that steady paycheck. And that was a huge, huge, huge leap for me. It was really scary. I didn't know what I was doing in the short term after I left that job, but I knew there was something bigger for me. And my mentor at the time said, "Hey, just get your personal training certification, start learning massage therapy if because I was thinking of becoming a physical therapist at the time. So just get experience working with people." So I moved to Berkeley, stopped doing that job in tech, and now I'm teaching fitness classes, boot camp classes, going to people's homes, doing personal training, corrective exercise, that type of thing. Learning more about the body and training and all of that, and started taking classes even for physical therapy, and kind of like figuring out my path. Like I wasn't really exactly sure where I was going next, but I knew it was holistic in a sense. And I was just starting to understand the concepts of, okay, there's more to it than how we move our body and our training. And also there's even more to it than what we're eating. So at that point in my life, right, I'm starting to adjust certain things in terms of lifestyle, sleep, eating, nutrition, right, movement, and finding the balance, right, and integrating all these things, becoming a little bit more stress management. So, right, there's all these different components. Slowly starting to kind of broaden my horizon. And, a few years later, I was continuing to do personal training and just felt, my partner at the time felt this big call to do some more exploration and do a trip to Europe and do some volunteering and explore retreat centers, that sort of thing that we're passionate about. And the trip ended up being amazing, but at the same time also ended up going through an end to the relationship. And so that was definitely one of the more challenging moments of my life, because what ensued then was a lot of anxiety, deep heartbreak, deep anxiety. Why am I here? Those kinds of questions. I remember just feeling lost. I remember struggling to breathe. The feelings were really intense, and I just didn't know how to be with myself. If I just put it simply, I did not know how to be with myself. And I remember that was a really dark place for me. And I'd left my apartment and moved back home with my parents, and just felt completely lost. And then just started working a lot, because that was one thing that would just keep me busy, in a sense, keep me distracted. But then I was starting to open up a little bit more, and it was the first time in my life started doing therapy. I had been offered or been asked to do therapy in my first serious relationship, but was pretty resistant. And so that was an eye-opening experience for me, of just starting to really delve into the emotional side of well-being and explore what was there. And that was definitely hard for me, but it was also really rewarding. And what I realized in that relationship, how enmeshed I was and how intertwined I was with that partner, and really didn't know who I was at the core. I hadn't really explored that and created my life outside of that relationship. And so really started to invest more in friendships, just friends with, in activities with other men and other friends, and to really put myself out there. I was just so comfortable. I was so cozy in my cocoon, that feeling. And that happens in cycles, right? Maybe there are cycles to it, but I was just so cozy in my cocoon. I didn't really put the energy and effort into my passions and purposes, and friendship and community, which were so, so important. And it was, I was working this job at a personal training job, started to really create some close friendships at this place, and one of my friends who I worked with invited me to retreat. It was a co-created retreat with the other group of friends. It was a men's retreat. Had never done anything like this before, and that was branded as the movers, shakers, and thinkers. And I think there were about 12 of us. We went up to Lake Tahoe, and everyone was asked to not provide, but share something, whether it was a story, a practice, a meditation, any kind of thing. And, ended up having an experience there that was so life-changing, because I had never in my life, I had been on sports teams before, but had never experienced a group of men coming together, sharing with each other what's real, what's true for us, what's on our minds, what's on our hearts. Went through amazing experiences and practices together, and did qigong and wrestling and dancing and all, just so many just fun activities together. Wow, why am I, and this was okay. Yeah, I had done this stuff, guys trips and stuff, we're going out and drinking, but this was focused on being present with each other, listening, sharing our stories, sharing our gifts, and sharing our teachings. And that really planted the seed for me, I think, what was to come next to my life, and I'm really passionate about, which is men's work, personal development, holistic health, and healing. And I come back from that experience, realize, oh my gosh, I really need to leave California and go on a journey. Something that I had also experienced that year was a trip to Peru. So this men's retreat and the trip to Peru, I think, happened maybe within about a month of each other. And one of my friends had reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to Machu Picchu, you want to come with me? I literally bought the ticket the next day, and had one of the most beautiful, amazing, and challenging experiences. We did a 5-day trek in the mountains of Peru, and we eventually made it up to 4,000 meters. It was 14,000 square feet high altitude, and probably the first time in my life feeling so connected to something bigger than me. It was connected to nature, connected to spirit, connected to the earth, connected to this energy in life. And whatever you want to call it, whether it be the universe, life force energy, spirit, God, divinity, it was a time I was really healing my heart, understanding, working on cultivating joy within myself. And that hike with my friend and a group of other people, out in the mountains of Peru, it just brought this level of connection to myself, connection with others, connection to nature. And the whole time I was being tested, it was hard to breathe up there. We went on a really challenging hike and camped out in the mountains and drank coca tea in the morning to help us with the altitude, and just being away from the distractions, being away from the technology and the city and cars and all that. And it was just us in the mountains and some llamas and alpacas, and realizing, wow, there's really more to this life in terms of what we can experience. There's more to what meets the eye. There's more in the realm of interconnection and spirituality, connection with the divine. And come back from that trip, and really these two trips, right, the men's group experience and this trip to Peru, and just realizing, wow, this may never would have happened. I never may put myself in the situations to say yes to this. If it weren't for maybe going through some of the challenging circumstances I did, and really shifting my mindset into seeking, right? And to wanting to explore, wanting to connect, wanting to look inward. in all the areas that I was working on in my life. And, I'm back home, California, and, realizing, okay, I've been on this path of learning more about helping others in terms of their health and fitness, but I know there's something more. I had decided at the time I didn't want to follow through on physical therapy school because I knew where I was going to be, where I got out of it, and I didn't want to be in the Western system. I didn't want to be $250,000 more in debt. And also realizing the path that I was taking was something that was not traditional, it was more alternative. And one of my clients at the time told me about this yoga teacher who was out in Guatemala. He's traveled all over the world, India, Thailand. He's done Ayurveda, Buddhism, yoga, photography, cooking, and started a yoga center. He's like, I think you'd really like him. So I check it out, call him, have a phone call, and I realized like, oh my gosh, I need to go. I need to go do this thing. So yeah, I think this was at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. I realized, you know what? I need to leave my job. I need to go set out on a trip. I signed up for this yoga training, which is 1 month in the beginning of 2018, but then I had no plans after that. So I set out on a journey to go travel in Central America with just, my backpack and that training, that yoga meditation training planned. And it was a huge leap, but it was something that I knew I needed to do. And at that time started really getting into the inward journey, meditation, reading books on spirituality, personal growth, things like Eckhart Tolle and The Alchemist and a lot of other, yoga, Buddhist kind of teachings, and Michael Singer, and starting to realize, oh my gosh, okay, yes, there's way more than just meets the eye. There's way more than just meets the mind. And you realize, okay, I was living in one sort of experience of reality in my mind and in my thoughts and in my body. But, especially after going through this yoga training, there was so much more to it than that there is this greater consciousness, witness to this all. And was starting to really understand that, okay, maybe I'm not all my thoughts, and I'm not my body. I'm a soul inhabiting this. I am the conscious observer, the witness of this whole experience. And that's really started to challenge me. It awakened me and challenged me in ways that were really painful and cracked me open, because there was a lot of emotions there, a lot of denial, there's a lot of history of suffering and pain. But here I was at this beautiful lake, Atitlan, in Central America, meditating every morning at 6 a.m., doing yoga every day, multiple times a day, being in nature, eating nourishing, organic food. At this point, I stopped drinking alcohol and was just really nourishing my body and detoxing and being with the emotions, and really, starting to develop more of a holistic type of practice for myself, a holistic type of way of living and lifestyle, more connected to nature and the elements, and meditation and yoga and prayer and all of this. And I had no plans after the training. It was really, really life-changing, but it was just from one day to the next, I found plans. I let the plans find me. I talked to people. I went to different hostels. I ended up in Costa Rica for a while and lived on farms and retreat centers there. I went to Envision Festival and meeting more and more incredible people and seeing how I could learn and serve at the same time, and learning more about holistic medicine and plants and nature and living connected to nature, and having some sort of spiritual practice. And it's evolved for me over time. It's been practices of yoga, of meditation, of prayer, of devotion, of practices of qigong, just connecting with myself, practices of journaling. And so just continuing to let the path unfold. But what I realized was, in life, if we're actually truly listening to our heart, our soul, the spirit, the signs that are out there that are always there, we are being guided and we are not alone. And what I realized, there were always doors and windows that were opening for us, doors and windows that I had never saw before, but they're there. And I know there's many more in my life that I don't even see now, but that's the beauty of it all. And if we were to know every single step of the way and how it all played out, it would almost be, it would just be too boring. And, there wouldn't be sort of the magic and the awe of this existence. But those 6 months backpacking in Central America brought so much joy, connection, dance, friendship, healing, learning new practices like Qigong and breathwork. I ended up in Nicaragua. I lived at an eco village and intentional community for about 6 weeks. There were about 30 of us there, and everyone coming together, providing so much. Everyone, pitches in a few hours a day of helping with food or maintenance or cleaning or gardening. But what you get in return is so much. And it's so much. It's joy. It's 3 meals a day. It's yoga classes, meditation classes, people sharing workshops, people sharing their skills, dancing, singing. Like, we had cacao ceremony and ecstatic dance every Friday night, and yoga and meditation starting at 6 a.m. every day. And we were maybe quote unquote working for, helping out for about 3 hours a day. And so just starting to experience all these different ways of living. And at the same time, I had no intention to really date anyone else, but I was dating myself and cultivating that, filling up that cup within. And that was my journey, my healing journey, and feeling like a kid again and recognizing, okay, what are the different patterns and belief systems and ways that I've operated, whether it be a controlling nature or a judgmental nature. So me learning how to let go and be more kind towards myself. How can I celebrate others instead of compare myself to others? And it's a constant journey. Going into certain experiences like breathwork journeys that really expanded states of consciousness, and working with certain plants as well that helped to really expand my state of consciousness was really, really awakening and powerful. And realizing, okay, we have this body, we have this mind, but there's so much more to it than that. And everything that we have happening in our physical body is a downstream effect of what's happening in the mind, in the emotions, in the mind, and the psyche, and at a deeper spiritual level. And so a lot of Eastern practices speak to this, that if we are really truly invested in coming back to health and vitality, we have to address the physical body, we have to address the mind, the heart, and the spirit. It's all connected. And so I didn't truly see it at the time, but I was basically, learning the basics of holistic health, lifestyle kind of coaching, holistic health and well-being and personal development, and then coming back over those years, like just investing myself in myself and more programs of personal development and holistic lifestyle coaching and functional health coaching and how to facilitate for others and the psychology of things. Really bringing that all together has been such a journey. And over the years realized, okay, what I want to do is not necessarily physical therapy. I want to help people with their pain get back into more joy, vitality, feel that more sense of confidence. Been involved in a lot more men's work and more men's groups and retreats, and realizing, oh my gosh, that is such an important part of what brings me joy and vitality, and getting back into sports. Although I'd taken so much time away from it, okay, there's all these different ways that I can serve and help, and it's so exciting. And envisioning the different pillars of health and vitality. You got physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and bringing together all these different holistic lifestyle practices. And so that's what I'm really excited about now. And it's basically how I live my life, and I like sharing that with other people. I love cooking and going to farmers markets and finding all the different combinations and permutations of things I can make, and sharing that with others, and sharing breath work and mindfulness with others. Those are the things that bring me joy. And over the last several years, really gotten into different kinds of practices, like different movement and dance practices that are more free-flowing and improvisational. Did I say that right? Ecstatic dance, 5 rhythms, that kind of thing, and music, to really work on getting into different states. And so I'm very much in the realm of like somatics, embodiment. Like we want to shift the mind, we work with the body. We want to shift the body, we also work with the mind. We connect that all together. Let the emotions kind of come through us, right? And so these are all aspects of, things that I've learned over the years that I implement that are so important in the work. And now having gone through different relationships, done more therapy, work on myself, and realizing so much of this is we're never at a destination, right? Because as we continue to evolve, the emotions of fear, the insecurities, the shame, those parts of ourselves come up. So it's like we form a relationship with it. And we create a new relationship with the ego, who's wanting more, greedy and desiring, right? We put the ego more to the back seat, and we let our heart and our soul take the lead. Bring me today. I'm still on this journey, learning in life and love, and in my mission and career, and helping others, and continuing to travel a lot and share. But it's just I've taken steps that have not made sense a lot of times to my family and to some of my friends, and I've said no to opportunities that would have brought stability and more security in my life, but I said yes to things that really filled up my cup and my heart was calling for. And so those have been some of the best decisions of my life, is just saying yes to what the heart wants, and then connecting the heart with the brain, gut, right? Having that sort of full body yes, I think, is really important. And so when you're making decisions in your life of what to do next, like really trusting into all those body centers. And I have not regretted any of those decisions. And taking those risks, right? Taking that leap of faith has been some of the best things I've done, and have brought so many new friendships, relationships, joy, excitement, new learnings and insight into my life. And I feel like I'm just beginning. So thanks for listening to this part of my story. This is just part 1. I know there's more to come, more to unpack here and share. Feel free to, comment and share, ask, what resonated with you. I'd love to know what questions you have, because there's probably a lot more questions that you have and things that you're curious about. So please share that. I'd love to know. And want to say I appreciate you. You've made it this far. Like, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really love and appreciate you. And we're not alone. And this life is just so precious and so magical, and we are so grateful to be here. So thank you so much, and just remember that you are amazing. Until next time, I'll see you later. Oh yeah, that's good. That's really good. Got some ginger, turmeric, cinnamon. There's a little bit of ashwagandha in here, some mucuna. There's some good stuff in here. See you later.